So we will be discussing this afternoon the 5 traits of a technopreneur. So this is already included in the file that was shared to you in Canva. So I hope my slide transitions already. I changed to a lower version of the PowerPoint. That way it can be shown on slideshow. If not, just let me know. Okay, so for this afternoon, we will start with the 5 traits of a technopreneur. So what are these 5 traits of a technopreneur? So I'll show to you pictures and let's see if you can guess the traits of this particular uh, technopreneur. Okay, wait, I have two coming in. Eugene and Gagan. Okay. Now you can see, can you see the picture? Can you see the
No,
illustration?
Doc.
No.
Doc, we're still in ano, Doc, ang hulgid ba lang, Doc, na PowerPoint?
So I think it's really my laptop that is having a problem. Thank you, Josh. So we'll just use the slides that I have here. I will not just use the slideshow. So you have here pictures. I hope you can see already a picture. So you have a picture here of uh, a cartoonized picture that will represent the first trait of a technopreneur. What do you think is the best, shall I say, adjective that we could use for a person or for a would-be technopreneur using this particular picture or illustration? You can write your guess on the chat box. A technopreneur is what?
A good communicator, miss.
A good communicator. So very good. So it's a rephrase of what is of the document that is shared to you in Canva. So a technopreneur first and foremost is a good communicator. A good communicator in the sense that he can have his ideas accepted. He is able to make a connection with the would-be customers and the would-be investors of his ideas or products. So number one, he is able to communicate, and not just communicate, but make a connection that is easily understood. Number one, by his investor if he does not have enough capital, or by his prospect market. Okay, so a good communicator or is able to communicate well. What do you think of this one? So a technopreneur should have, what do you think is this? What trait of a technopreneur could you see in here? Let me see. Somebody wrote in the chat box. Time management. Okay. Do we limit it only to time management or flexibility? What's a more general answer that we can place here for the characteristic of an entrepreneur based on the illustration?
Versatile.
Organized. Okay. Versatile. Systematic, organized. So if a person is systematic, if he is organized, if he is flexible, he is well aware of his time, or shall we say in our language, he has the Gantt chart on how things is going to be done. Things are scheduled. How much time will be allotted to this? How much time will be allotted to this? So what do you think would be a more general encompassing characteristic that we can coin to this particular picture for our entrepreneur? Okay, one additional message here, knowledgeable. Okay, so I'll have all the words that you have suggested here merged into one general thought. So we say that a technopreneur should have a good product knowledge or product management knowledge. So that person has a deep understanding of his product in order that he's able to present his idea or his product to his customer. So deep understanding in the sense that the details of how much time he needs, that way he can produce the, let's say for example, the sample or the prototype of his product, what target customer he intends to sell this product, how much of the target market initially will he have to, let's say, capture. That way he is just able to actually introduce the product initially to the market. This he has a full knowledge of. So we say that a good technopreneur has a good product knowledge, including product management knowledge. So in terms of the picture that was shown to you. Now, so the first one, a good communicator. The second one, a good product knowledge. What about this one? So I think this is relatable since majority of our phones are running on Android. But of course, there are those who are also running on iOS. And Java is the equivalent of C++ when we have these particular codes already. What's this term that my husband used to use? When it is already placed online. So C++ is working in your computer, cannot be anymore used online. But if it is online, it's Java, the equivalent of the C++ or the C+ online language. So what do you think is this third characteristic? So tech savvy, techie. Okay. I like the term here, technical understanding. So a good entrepreneurship has the product knowledge, including how his product is to be managed, especially in how it's going to be introduced into the target market. But very important is he has to know the technicalities of the product and even the services or the services that he intend to introduce into the market. So technical understanding is very, very important, or technically equipped. I think it's very ironical, right? You were selling something that you don't understand. You sell a cell phone. You don't know how the cell phone works. What makes it different than the other phones in the market? Why is your cell phone better? How many apps can it have? Or things of that sort. If you're selling something, first and foremost, if you would be asked about the thing, you will be the one that is most knowledgeable because you're the one selling it. It's very ironical, and it's really like a no-no in the market if you would be asked what makes your product better than the others that are already existing. Or how do you operate this thing? What button do I push? Something like that. Or how do I make this particular equipment work because my power source at home is 110, not the usual 220, something like that. That's very basic. But you as the seller, you as the technopreneur, from the term technology and entrepreneur, this is very, very vital, very important that you know the technicalities of what you are selling. And as such, you are called a technopreneur. You cannot be called a technopreneur if in the first place you don't know the technology behind of what you are selling. So that is very important. Now next is this. What do you think? A technopreneur is what? So first thing is good communicator. Second, a product knowledge, a good product knowledge. 3, knows the technicalities of his product. 4, okay, we'll read what you have written here. Risk taker, searching for solution. Risk taker, risk taker, risk taker. Okay, determined. Okay, you see this man here? His goal is still way ahead of him, not in front of him, but still far from him. But in getting to that particular goal, you see these sharks in here. So this represent threats, risks that he has to take. So a technopreneur is willing to take big risks, not just small risks, but big risks. The reason why Apple is Apple, it's because of Steve Jobs. Okay? He is the man who is willing to work 18 hours, 20 hours a day. The man who is willing to shall I say, be bad mouthed by his employees, because he's really like a slave driver. If he intends to have something finished for that particular period and it's not finished, he cannot go home. Just like he himself does not go home. So people or persons that are successful paid something big for them to be successful. And Apple could not be getting its own niche in the market, or cannot have his own niche in the market without that big brain behind Apple. And that's the man that, of course, is not around with us anymore, but his brainchild, the iPhones that we are using now, and it's being continually improved, modified to suit the needs of the target market, is still being used. It has its own target customer. Why? Because that person is willing to take risks, because his focus is on the goal. Okay? The goal is, he has that vision that Apple will be something like this, that in spite of technologies that are way cheaper than it being around, and in spite of the target market, of course, that is not like uh, 70%, or let's say na lang 60% A in terms of the financial capacity, but even the B's and sometimes the C's would go to the trouble of saving. That way they can have an Apple. Why? Because it's different when you have an Apple. It's really different than the other, shall I say, cell phones, other shall I say, monitors. There's so many things that Apple sells. So it's not just the cell phones, but there are things that Apple's also sell, running on their own software, very, very, shall I say, safe compared to what is commonly being used and around in the market now. Okay, so a technopreneur is a risk taker, a big risk taker, because his eyes are on the goal, or is on the goal. So it's not just focusing on the perils or on the risks or the negativities that initially you will encounter in the market, because di kung mahal magit siya compare sa iba, he will have to offer something really, really tangible and beautiful aside from what is available in the market for it to be acceptable. Okay, now you have here the last, and I think this applies only not to technopreneurs but for us, for all of us in general, in whatever field you may be. What do you think is this? So, big risk taker. What about this one? What do you think is this? Very important. Actually, it is coined with the risk taker. That way, success is achieved for the goals that were set. What do you think is this? Persistence. Small progress is still progress. Hardworking, determined, resourceful, determined. Okay, majority is saying or giving the synonym of another, but the word that is being used is persistent. Okay, there will always be learning curves in any situation, not just in business, even in when you were a student in the grade school, then next to high school, then senior high, then now college, about to graduate. What things that keeps you going is persistence. The hope that I will make it. This is my dream for now at this period of my life. I need to finish college. Next, I will have another set of goals after this one. And persistence helps you make it through. It's the same thing with being a technopreneur. It's really difficult if you're still in the bottom. You are still at the bottom. Even if you're on top, it's still difficult. Why? You cannot stay there. You still need to put your best foot forward all the time. Meaning you continually innovate. You cannot stay in the market if you stay where you are. You say, okay, I have already 60% of the market. I'm already reaping profits at 80% of what I have invested, or even 100% or 420%. But that will not stay there. If you don't innovate, you will later on, you will just be surprised that you are no longer known in the market. So you have to continually be improving, continually innovate, because the target market is also changing. It's not something that is stagnant. It's dynamic. So you are to continually improve based on the target market that you intend to sell your products or services. So persistence, that is, or being persevering. Okay, in the business world, we use the word persistent. Okay, so these are the 5 traits of a technopreneur. So you have a good communicator, has a good product knowledge, knows the technicalities of the product, a big risk taker, and of course, persistence. Now, I got this as I was scrolling to the web. I came across this particular saying. Actually, this applies not only to the river, even a simple water for that matter. So a river cuts through rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Applicable to anything. Even if you're courting somebody, the gentleman here, if you're courting somebody, sometimes persistence wins it all. Sometimes you don't get to be even given a glance, o sa inyo nga time probably hindi ka get type, pero sige lang you will just be surprised that you will really at the end your persistence will be, excuse me class. Okay, somebody wrote in the chat box, kung taken na be miss. Okay, James, kung taken na James, hindi pa man asawa, ang buta, lain na lang James, hindi na lang nasa, pagkita ka na lang lain. By the way, pero ti kung taken ko no, balila ka kung wala pa man asawa, okay pa na gyapon. Okay? Sige. Pangaluyag lang na gyapon, basta siguro nang ano ka lang ha, andam ka lang, basta masumbagan ka blahaw, simo. Okay? So that, it's just on the, shall I say man, to be safe, mangita na lang kalain. Okay? Di pa man ginaguro nga totoo, naging siya na lang gidya hasta 5 years from now, 10 years from now, mo siya magyapon, basi may ara ka pa da makita, James. Now, we will continue. So, in here, we will now contrast the entrepreneur and the technopreneur. So, if the entrepreneur likes to compete, the technopreneur likes to innovate. Your entrepreneur is self-starter, a self-starter, a pioneer. Your technopreneur or a technopreneur is usually, most of the time, part of a team. So your tech entrepreneur is able to do many things at once. The technopreneur is able to do many things at once but chooses to delegate. In our times now, especially in group activities or in requirements that you are to collaborate with one another, it's really very important to delegate. If not, one of you will be, shall I say, reaching already their peak or their stress level, the others are just okay. So it is always advised that the stress is equally divided. Okay, so delegate. Now, more so, later on, you will realize if you're in the real working world, in the industry, and you're managing people, the very important, shall I say, but hard way to do, important, but it's really very hard to do, is to delegate. Especially if you're younger than the persons that you need to talk to and delegate the work into, especially in the industry, it's really, really very difficult. It's at times you will recall what they're saying. It's better when I was a student, when I'm not yet earning my own money. Because later in the industry, if you will be placed in a responsibility that you don't work alone, that you will work with people, you will really come into a circumstance wherein you need to talk to somebody, have that somebody, shall I say, accept your suggestion or follow your instruction coming from somebody else. And that's really difficult, especially if they assess, if the assessment of that person that you're trying to delegate the work to is, I'm more experienced than you, and you are just a newbie here. So that's really a very difficult circumstance. But we learn as we go along because there's no other way that you can survive in the industry if you don't learn to deal with people. Masapos pa magtuon sa eskwela sa mag-deal sa mga tao nga lain-lain personalities, especially sa industry. I worked in the industry for 5 years. Mas mayo pa mag-istorya sa estudyante sa mag-istorya sa mga tao that their assessment of you is that you're just a new graduate. I know better than you because I'm more experienced than you. Why would you tell me to do that or something like that? You will get to know that when you're there. Okay, so it's very, very important that we learn as early as now the art, I shall call it an art, the art of dealing with people and making people agree with you or follow your suggestion, especially on tasks that need to be done as a group that collaborates. Okay, now an entrepreneur is creative, has goals and dreams. The technopreneur is innovative and has vision. Okay? The entrepreneur is motivated to achieve and attain financial success. So normally, basta negosyante, stand-alone, small business, enterprise, kalabanan, gid, ang goal din na i-permit to earn a profit. Okay? Now, for the technopreneur, the goal is always to be one with a team whom you agree with the vision of. So motivated by a strong vision and passion to innovate. So, but this is a common goal that is shared by everybody in a team. Okay, the entrepreneur focuses on the chances of success rather than the possibility of failure. Oftentimes, because it's a given, you stand alone, it's your own money that you have invested there. So you're more focused on how you earn, even if it's just a small percentage of what you have invested. Now, the technopreneur, on the other hand, since they're working as a team, takes failure in stride and knows that if it's corrected, it would lead to success. They know that in failing, they get to learn from that particular failure and later on learn that this is how to do it better, or this is how it's going to be done so that the market would accept our product or our service. Why? Because there's, let's say, for example, if you're just one head thinking of everything that is to be done because you're doing your business alone, or let's say you have a partner, but here comes a technopreneur that works with a group. So common na siyang knowledge, common na saying, many heads better than one, or two heads better than one. But many heads are better than two heads, just thinking for a particular concept. So it's this particular thing that the technopreneur is banking on. He works with a team in which he has a common vision with, common objective with, and even though they fail at the beginning, but they are certain that they have those failures, focus on the learning behind those failures, they will succeed on whatever the shared goal is. Okay, so this is just contrasting between the entrepreneur and the technopreneur. Okay, now we go to the third part of this module, the entrepreneurial process. It has a chronological order in which there is rather a chronological order in which this process is going to be followed through. I'm going to show you pictures which are equivalent of this particular process steps that the entrepreneur follows. Okay, so you have here in the first picture the common thing that is being done. I think everybody knows what is what. So organization does this. So it's the analysis of the strengths, the weaknesses, the threats, and the opportunities available for a particular organization in the realization of their set goals, whatever those set goals are. So part of this analysis is the analysis of opportunities. So in the entrepreneurial process, first step is the analysis of opportunities. What particular perceived needs in the market do you know of or do you observe of? And in those hundreds of needs that you have seen in the market, what particular need would you like to offer a solution of? So there has to be this analysis of opportunities available for you to, of course, engage in business. Whatever it is, are you going to make a product or you're going to offer services? So you have to really analyze your target market for this particular opportunities. Now, as for existing businesses already, if they want to scale up or if they want to diversify, they still do this because they would like to see what particular opportunities in the market could they go into and what particular strengths do they have that they can use in these particular opportunities that they have seen in the market. As for weaknesses, they look for ways in which these weaknesses can be addressed. That way they don't stay as their weaknesses, or shall I say the negatives of the for the realization of their set objectives or goals. Now, so you have the SWOT analysis, but I'd like to use the term here, analysis of the opportunities available in the market. The next, based on that particular analysis of the opportunities of the market, the entrepreneur makes a business plan. So based on that particular opportunities that I have singled out, that I think based on my strengths, I can offer something, I can offer a solution, then he makes a business plan for that. What will I do? That way I can introduce this particular, shall I say, idea or goods that I have in mind to make in the market. How much of the market do I think will I be able to capture initially? Okay, how will I introduce it into the market? What will I use? What resources will I use? That way I can introduce it in the market. So when you speak of resources, class, it's not just material resources like what I will make, what I will use as raw materials in making juice. Though that's a very simple perception of a resources is, but when we speak of resources, we also think of people who I need to tap to. That way I will realize my business. So that's part of the business plan. Then also number one didactically is, where will the money come from? Who are my investors? Where will I get my capital? Something like that. So that's part of the business plan. How long will I do or finish this planning stage? That way I can introduce it in the market. So these are all part of the business plan, and you will make your own business plan later. So towards the end of this term, you will be taught on how to make a business model or a business model plan. Okay? Now, so starting from analysis of opportunities, you go to the business plan. The entrepreneur goes to thinking of what is his plan. Okay, number one, it would be the resources. What are my resources? Now, once he is able to, shall I say, define the resources that he needs, then he, shall I say, make sure that he has all these resources already. He makes sure that all the resources that he needs he already has. Before he went into, what do you think is this? Anybody has an idea? So this is opportunities. This is business plan. This is pooling of resources. What do you think is the next step? So that I can engage you. What do you think after he has already identified the resources? What is this? Let me see. Implementation. Very good. So building up, implementation. So after the identification of the resources, and you already have your resources, you have identified it already in your business plan, and you have already pulled your resources together, then you implement the idea. What is that particular idea? Okay, implementation is the fourth step. What do you think is this last step after the implementation? Okay, What about the others there? What do you think is the last step after implementation? The chat box is open. I have one here. Implementation, monitoring, evaluation, improvement. What else? Find partners, miss. Finding the partners is in gathering of your resources. Okay? Dapat nauna na siya even before you started implementing. So what do you think after you have implemented your idea? What do you think is the next thing that you do? That would be this one. What do you think is the appropriate term there? Okay? Growing your business. Very good, Sarah. Growing your business, evaluation. I'm looking for harvesting, improvement. Okay. So what you do here, you could see here. Thank you for those answers. You scale up. So you implement. You scale up. You start small. And then once you already have you already know your market fully well, its behavior, its ups and downs, then you do the harvesting. This is where you already reap the fruits of your labor. But very important after implementation is scale. You do the scaling. Scaling has something to do with what's the appropriate initial production that I will do, or how will I initially introduce my service in the market? Will I go big right away or will I start small? So you have to think of what's the appropriate plan for your business. So you have to do scale up or you do scaling, and then later on, once you are already comfortable with the market, then that's the time that you harvest uh, the fruits of your labor. Okay, when you do harvesting here, eventually a good entrepreneur over time will realize that there has to be monitoring and evaluation. But sad to say, class, for the entrepreneurial process, we only have a 5-step process. I'd like to show it to you here, taken from the reference. So the entrepreneurial process has only 5 steps. So analyze the opportunities available, do the business planning, particularly focus on the identification of the needed resources. Then you gather your resources. Then you implement since you already have your resources, and then you do scaling and harvesting. This is just the 5-step process for an entrepreneurial process. Oftentimes, this is only applicable for small businesses, but if you go big, the process is bigger. The steps in here becomes longer. And that's where the Technopreneurial process comes in. Okay? This is the last part of our module, the Technopreneurial process. Somebody wrote in the chat box, maintenance and improvement. Now, we do maintenance and improvement after what have we done? Before you can even do improve and maintain, what do? You do evaluation, right? You evaluate, you monitor. Okay, this particular step that you have mentioned here, Joburn and Dan, is actually seen as part of the Technopreneurial process. Okay, the monitoring. So we go to the 8 steps for the Technopreneurial process. What do you think is this one? Please don't look at the notes that you have there. I'd like to check whether you know how to come up with ideas based on illustrations that are provided here. So what do you think would this Bob represent? For the Technopreneur, what do you think this has something to do with? Brainstorm, idea generation. I like this, Earl, very good. You generate ideas. So Just like when you do in the what the entrepreneurial process does, you assess the market and you check for opportunities. For the technopreneur, you brainstorm and you create ideas. Ideas that you think would click on the market that you have chosen to offer service or sell goods. So you generate ideas. Very important. Damo-damo pa na siya. Of course, damo-damo gina siya. If you are sitting with like 5 people, you brainstorm for a particular idea that you think would be attractive to the market. Let's say, for example, your target market will be on the age group 15 to 25. What would be a good goods or services to offer to this age group? Something like that. So 5 heads thinking of what would that be would create hundreds of ideas. Okay, more than tens of ideas for that. So generate ideas. What do you think about this number 2? After you have generated ideas, what do you think is the next step? Chat box. You write your comments in the chat box. You have already generated ideas. What do you think is the next step? I only have one here. Okay, tama na siya. Let's see. We have here choosing the best among the ideas you have generated. Correct. Selecting the best idea. Assess the ideas. In order to select the best idea, of course, we need to assess the idea. Choose unique idea or product. Selection. Idea selection. Okay, so we have generated ideas from that particular ideas, just like thank you for your answers, just like the way you have seen here in the picture. Out of those bulbs there, you pick the one that is the brightest based on your assessment as a team. So what particular idea do you think will be best suited for your market? So you have many ideas, you screen the ideas, you assess, and then you select the best one that you think will work for your market. Okay, now you have selected a particular idea. What do you think is the next? Step 3. By knowing, okay, I like to read what's written. By knowing the advantage and disadvantages and weighing them, yeah, that's part of the assessment. So you're going to select the best one. Now, next is, Giselle is saying here, you test the idea. Okay, very good, Giselle. So when we speak of testing the idea, you don't present it to the entire market. You only select a small locality or a small portion of the target market that you would like to test your idea. Let's say, for example, you will just only like, if you're selling a particular material or goods, or you're selling goods, you just target probably initially 5 families or 10 families and you gather feedback. That's how you test. You don't test for the entire Bacolod city. You would like to sell your product to the entire city of Bacolod, and right away initially you will also have it like you will shall I say spend too much because you test the entire market. No, when you test the entire market, you only select a portion of that market and you gather feedback, because that's very, very important. Evaluate the idea. You test the idea. You test your idea. You select a portion of your target market. How will your target market perceive or receive your idea? That's it. Okay, testing. Now, after you have tested, what do you think is this one? The 4th part. I hope we can see there. Let me check if you can see if it's bigger. This one. You have tested, gathered feedbacks, very important feedback. Okay, let me check. Market study, data gathering. Market study, data gathering, true. Okay. analyze. Now, from the feedback that you got here from the testing, you do management of this particular, you manage, you analyze, you assess the data that you have gathered in here. So this is where you go back to your drawing board. If this number of families, I have this particular feedback, what would be my expected, let's say if I will now go full scale in the market, what is my expected, shall I say, market share for this particular product only? So you do projection, you analyze, you project how will now the entire Bacolod City react to your offered product or service. Okay, that's your number 4. Now, based on that, you already have the analysis. Okay, I will now go into full scale. I will now introduce my service or product to the entire city of Bacolod. The next step that I will do is, you're already done with the drawing board. As part of being technology savvy, you do, so you can see here, what are this? You do, okay, only one. What do you think is number 5? The data analysis is here. Data analysis for the test. The testing in the market, you do prototyping class. You don't go full scale production yet. You prototype, you create your prototype. For us engineers, this particular word is easy to follow. You do a prototype, you make a prototype, and then based on the prototype that you have, 6, what do you think is 6? You have the smileys here, the heart here. Based on the prototype, what do you think is the next step? You are done prototyping. 6 is, I have here, marketing. You do marketing and you gather feedback now, not just on a test population, but on the entire city. So you see here, you market now your product because you're finished with the prototyping. So some would like it, some would really love it. So you get those very important feedback, okay, from your market. 7, what do you think about this? After you already gathered the feedback of the market, what do you think is this? You do you will do what? You have the valve, you have the box, you do commercialization. Commercialization will now take into consideration marketing, advertising. You commercialize your product already. Okay? Okay. Improvements. The improvements will come after number 8. This is where you do number 8 so that we can have these improvements. Number 8 is in Technopreneurship, you gather feedbacks here, class, on number 6. You sell already, so you gather the feedback. This is not anymore testing. And then you do full-scale commercialization by already having marketing, advertising, all those things. Last is evaluation and monitoring. You monitor the behavior of the market. Is the market okay with just a phone that has a single camera? Is the market okay with just a phone having 2 cameras, or the market is more okay with phones having 4 cameras? Something like that. You monitor the behavior of your market and you evaluate your product. Is this still okay for the demands of the market? Is before then the market is okay with keypad cell phones, no Facebook, nothing. Now, do you see people still using the keypad? I think only the old people using the keypad in their cell phone. Majority are using the touchscreen phones. It's because it's the market that dictates those needs. So why would the manufacturing industry or the manufacturers still stick to the keypad when the market doesn't like the keypads anymore. They'd rather go touchscreen. They want 4 cameras in their phone. They want 100, much is this? 64, after 64, 128 GB memory, something like that. Before 32 will do. Or is it 32? Then 64, then now you have 128. Even others have even higher than that. I'm not so familiar, but it's really the market that dictates what the producers produce. Or sometimes it's the producers that are creating the need. So they create this mobile phones that have so many apps on it. Of course, since there's so many apps, it will require greater large memory. So larger memory. So now the market will have, is not content anymore with just having 32 GB. They would rather have 128. Why? Because their phones are already multifaceted. Damo-damo na siya apps. So hindi na kaya sa 32 GB lang. Or with the demand of Instagram and all, wherein your photos have to be, you have to be constantly taking photos of yourselves, selfies, all the events in your lives are well documented in Instagram and all those things. So you need a bigger memory for your phone if you are that person. But there are persons who would be contented with just a 32 GB. So it really depends. But I have seen this. I don't know if you will observe now. It's really the market that dictates or tells us what we need. It's not that I am against technology, because technology one way or the other has made lives easier for us now, probably more enjoyable, but I think it's better then, during my time when I was a kid compared to kids now who have very toxic environments. But the thing is, it's really the market that dictates what is good. So if social media says that this is good, it's good to be like this, it's good to be like that, it's good to have this particular gadget. Sad to say, a lot of people are convinced that whatever the media is saying that is good, it's good. Okay, or we operate on the rule of the majority. Whatever the majority says is okay, it's okay for everybody. But for some, it's not okay. So I'm already going out of technology. But the thing is, speaking of the market, sometimes you have to realize that it's the manufacturers that tells us that we need this, we need that. Before, we don't even need this technology. But since they are the ones who dictate that we should be having this, we should have that, we have it now. Some others are even pressured to have something that they most likely would not have realized if it's not that, shall I say, openly marketed in social media. So they now perceive something that is of a want as a need, because social media says that it's a need already. That's just my opinion. I'll stop sharing here. Let me see if it will project now. So this is our Technopreneurial process. Okay, the illustration that were shown to you are the 8 steps in the Technopreneurial process. So we have the idea generation. We select from the ideas, or we screen the ideas. Then we test the concept. Then we do business analysis based on the feedback of that particular testing that we did. Then we do prototyping. Now incorporating the suggestions, the feedbacks that we have from our testing. Then we do test market. Now on the market, the entire market that we have, shall I say, already thought of initially to be where we're going to offer our product or service. Then we do commercialization. This is already full scale. We have everything in place, including advertising and marketing. Then the very important is we evaluate continually the market, we monitor it, and how well our product still fits the need of such a market for us to survive, of course, the ever dynamic changing world of, shall I say, customer needs and satisfaction. The needs of the customer changes, the same thing with the degree of satisfaction on these particular needs and services, products and services. Okay, now do you have any question? The last part in here will be the part wherein I ask you to, let me just check. Okay, the last part is for you to present your research on the 3 local entrepreneurs and 3 global entrepreneurs. What are your takeaways, or what have you learned from what they have introduced into the market? And I'd like to stop recording here.